Hello and welcome to Cutting Down the Nets, December 15th, 2021, Wednesday slate. Checking in on the year 201 and 145. That includes the Alabama loss that is not yet official, but certainly looks close. So 58.1%, last 7 days, 25 and 20. So good pool today. I think I'll finish 5-2 with the Bama loss. I don't know if Larry Brown took over coaching duties for Penny, but certainly running Bama out of the gym currently. So those things happen. Saw some sharp people on the Memphis side. Saw some sharp people on the Bama side. Just a tough one to swallow. But overall, Towson got there. Monmouth got there. Austin P faded late. Alcorn State made a jumper with 8 seconds left to avoid the push. Jackson State led at halftime, almost blew it all away, but then closed. Jacksonville cruised as 1-point dogs. That line actually moved all the way to Jacksonville, favored by 3.5. So one of those benefits of betting early. And then Bama got waxed for me. Other plays in the pool that I think had some life tonight. So maybe you jumped in on some of those. UC Davis and Oregon State is tight at the half. And South Alabama, I think, got there against Arlington State. So let's move on to the Wednesday slate. A few disclaimers that I'll say along the way. So I'm typically trying to get the best line. That's how you achieve closing line value, and I'm being very careful with that. So I'll go through which ones I'm willing to bet right away and which ones I'm trying to squeeze on. And when you try to squeeze, sometimes you lose a little bit of value. It is a difficult game to play. So we'll start. Howard against Georgetown. So this this number, Patty has Georgetown only by 3.5, and the market is 12. Ken Palm 13, Torvik 9. Howard had 2 games earlier this year where they were extremely efficient offensively, making a lot of 3-pointers. One was against Villanova, one was against Bradley. So if I were to be honest with myself and massage that number a little bit, it's probably closer to 8, but there's still significant value here. Bovada does not have this line up yet. I have seen lots of 12s. I saw a 10. I'm out at a 10, but I'm thinking a 12 will be available, but I obviously prefer a 13, which is certainly possible with the Ken Palm number. At 13, Georgetown coming off win over Syracuse. They got some buzz with their freshmen. I don't know. I wouldn't settle for a bad number here. I'd rather sit it out if that was the case. But I think we'll get 13, and I'm fine with anything north of 12 on Howard. Next game. So these are sorted by variance between my point spread and what the actual point spread is currently. But I don't want you to think of these as rankings. More, this is just sorted by variance. For instance, game number 2, it's a 7-point variance, but I'm going to sit that one out. So Oregon's been struggling, but that happens sometimes with Altman teams early last year. Did not happen. They got out of the gate fine. Portland forces lots of jumpers. It's a big number. Not the spot I necessarily want to attack Oregon off 2 losses. I think there could be spots later, but I'm just going to avoid that game. I could see it being close. Not close, meaning like Portland's going to win. More like right around that 15 to 20 mark for the last 8 minutes of a game, and that is very frustrating position to be in as an underdog backer. Okay, next game that I am interested in would be Abilene Christian against Cal State Bakersfield. Weird schedules for both of these teams. And Cal State Bakersfield, I think, has played 4 D1 teams this year, and Abilene Christian had a streak where they played 4 or 5 non-D1 opponents in a row. So kind of a smaller sample here. But even looking at that smaller sample, I think Bakersfield is actually a little worse than what their data is showing. So while I have Abilene at 15.8, I think that number could actually be higher. I'm going to be patient with the line, though, because KenPom has it at 8. Bakersfield is super slow, 321st in pace. All of that's accounted for in my number. I'm not using an average tempo or anything like that. It's accounting for a lower number of possessions, and it's still an edge there. So I'm fine with that, but I am going to try and get greedy and squeeze some value out of that. Next up, we got Kermit against his old team. So Ole Miss has Middle Tennessee. Current line is 10. KenPom is 11. I obviously prefer the 11. I don't know if that will come. I'm fine with 10. So I may lock it in and avoid the risk of losing value instead of just trying to squeeze an extra point out of that game. Akron. So John Grosh. Oh, God. That guy. Against Wright State. Wright State's favored by 3. Both teams had early shooting woes. Akron seems to have corrected itself. Wright State's has not yet. It's possible it doesn't. But my data has Akron actually as favored on the road here, even after accounting for home court edge. Little side note here, Akron is number 1 in free throw rate, so the rate at which they draw fouls, and Wright plays 20% bench minutes, which is 344th in the country. So I think that is a relevant stat if we're diving deep into this game. Aside from all that, I like Akron, but am a little concerned that Wright State gets its shooting stroke. Lamar, Texas State. Lamar gives up lots of easy buckets, but the pace has me concerned with laying the number that big, so I am going to sit that one out. I would put it in the pool. I would consider it. If you like action and want to splash some money out there, I don't think there's anything wrong with the bet. There's just enough there that concerns me. If you are interested in doing that, I would wait. KenPom is 12. So in a situation where it drops to 12 and then that gets steamed down to like 11 or something like that, I'd probably jump in. So we'll see what happens. Kind of monitoring that one, but not aggressively. Wazoo against New Mexico State. Both teams have had some inconsistent performances this year. That skews the data a little bit. I mean, it's just harder to predict a median outcome when you've got outliers like that. So this feels like a lot of points for what I think is a fairly even matchup. So likely a pass for me. And I think 8 will be the best that you do with the KenPom number of 9. It feels like it should be more like 2 possessions, like a 6-point game. So data likes it, but I see why in the outliers. And I can just show you that too. I mean, so I have this game up right now, and this is New Mexico State's profile. So their adjusted offensive efficiencies a lot in the 115, 117 range, but then also can show up in the 90s. And on the defensive side, you'll see a 124, a 123, and then a lot of 90s. So most likely they have a mid-90s defensive efficiency, so I'm not giving them quite enough credit there. And they likely have a better offense than 106. And 106 has not shown up in anything. It's more like 115 or 90, and that's what makes it unpredictable. On this side of the coin, we have that famous game against Arizona State where no one scored points for like 3 hours. And the adjusted offensive efficiency for Washington State in that game was 81, which pulls down their offensive numbers. And then their adjusted defensive efficiency for that game is 46, which is an extreme outlier. So hard to parse that data. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen. That's why I transfer everything over to spreadsheets. But yeah, my data is somewhere in that 11 to 14 range, but I understand why, and I don't like it. All right, getting back to business. A little peek behind the curtain there. Nebraska, Omaha at UNLV, that's just going to be a pass for me. 19 points with a team like UNLV is just not enough value for me. I'd have to have them favored by a significant amount to want to swallow a 19. Okay, so far, I'm in on the 4 green ones. I think you could get greedy and maybe get an extra point, but in that process, you could lose a point. It's just a game that you have to play. I will likely sit out Oregon unless something really strange happened, which I'm not expecting. Lamar, Texas State, if it shot down below 12, it might suck me back in. New Mexico State, Wazoo, not really interested. Next game that I like would be Winthrop at Elon. Current line's 3.5. KenPom has 3, but I doubt that dips. It's possible, but just doesn't feel like it when you look at records and Winthrop has a little more history than Elon. I don't know. Just I'm not expecting that to drop. But fun game, fast pace, lots of jumpers on both sides, making it a high variance game. But I think a significant offensive edge to Winthrop here. I would prefer 3. But in a fast-paced game like that, I don't think it matters as much as a grinder, so I'd be fine with 3.5. I just don't know if I'll be in a hurry for that or not. We'll kind of see. All bets will be on BetStamp. These last 2 are not showing much variance from my model to the spread. The reason they're here is what I expected the lines to be were far different than what they showed up as. So Utah State, Weber State. Currently, Utah State's favored by 2.5. KenPom has it by 1. Utah State by 1. I would be interested in a dog bet on Utah State. I don't think it's coming, so likely out. If it got down to -1, where I believe it opened, I'd be fine going back in. Chattanooga at Belmont. I'd want like 8, I think, here. So I have 3.8, which is really 4. So at 6.5, not enough there. KenPom is 7, so could it go up? People like Belmont. Yeah, I don't know. Not likely a play, but worth noting. So if I were to summarize that information the best I could, this is what I believe I'm looking at. Final pool would be Howard. I'd prefer 13. I'm fine with 12. Abilene Christian, I'd prefer 8. I'm fine with 9. Middle Tennessee, I'd prefer 11. Fine with 10. Akron +3 is okay. Obviously want more than possession. And Winthrop -3.5 is fine. Could get greedy. So I don't expect to win all of these from a closing line value perspective, but it sure would be nice. And I think I ran pretty hot with that today on picking my spots, and luckily didn't have to pay the price for that. I mentioned Utah State as a dog. I don't think that's likely, so just monitoring that in the Chattanooga at 8, I'd be interested in. So potential live bets or just sit them out. So feel confident with a pool of 5, and then it's possible that could grow. If it does, you would see it on BetStamp. So that is what I got for December 15th. So for cutting down the nets. I am Kane. Let's stay hot. Man, running good. Let's keep it going. You're only as good as your next handicap. Good luck, everybody.